sick and tired of hearing things from uptight, short-sighted, narrow-minded hypocrites. All I want is the truth. Just give me some truth.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Truth Only Show here on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, 102.3 FM. We are back with a new episode of the Truth Only Show, and we would like to remind you to go to truthonlyshow.com to find our previous episodes, all available right there on the website, so that you can share it, watch them, enjoy them, and hopefully get something out of it. That's all available at truthonlyshow.com. Now, here's the host of the Truth Only Show, David Rodriguez.
Good morning, everyone. Great to have you here with us again on another episode of our show where we give you nothing but the truth. We got cut off. I don't hear a thing.
Keep going.
Yeah, something happened here. We got still cut off. It was on and all of a sudden it just cut off. Can you hear me now? No? Still not working. Oh, you can?
Yeah, you're coming in.
But I can barely hear myself. Now I can hear you a little bit. Okay. Well, we had a little technical difficulties here. We're going to get started again. We're going to continue on. Just give me 1 second here. There you go. Okay. Truth Only Show. Here's one thing I'm going to talk about. Think about why we named this the Truth Only Show. If you listen closely to our show, I'm going to challenge you to question what we talk about here, and question whether if we ever say anything that is not true. I would sure like to find out what that is, because I know that everything we ever talk about is true. Once in a while we might mention an opinion or so, but basically 95% of this show, or 98% of it, is nothing but the truth about you, the listeners. Well, I want to thank you all and welcome you all very much for being here with us, especially all you new listeners out there. And as usual each week before we get started, I want to give thanks to the people that make this show possible. Our engineer, Joe, and our webmaster, Mr. Joe Strausser, and my co-host and producer, Michael, who you just heard right now. And again, something that is very, very important to me and should be important to all of you who, if you listen to what I'm going to say, should be very important. If you know anyone, or if you yourself are experiencing any types of problems like with your heart, let's say, for example, you got a slow heartbeat, a fast heartbeat, or every once in a while if it starts beating irregular. If you have any types of issues like that, if you're experiencing dizziness, which is probably not normal, any issues like that, we highly, highly recommend the brilliant, and I mean brilliant, Dr. Duong, okay? He's an electrophysiologist, not a cardiologist. He's an electrophysiologist, okay? And his number is 877-773-8664. I'm going to repeat that. 877-773-8664. Okay, let's get started here this quickly about what we teach, what we talk about here. And what we teach is human nature. When you begin to understand why human nature, you're going to see that it is the most important thing that you can know about yourself. Think about this. Think about this subject this way. Now, the human mind is, whether you understand this or believe it or not, the human mind is actually the most powerful thing that there is in this universe. And the reason I say that very simply is because the human mind can control all the other powers in the universe: electricity, gravity, nuclear power. The human mind can control everything. The human mind is what creates everything that we have here, that was provided here for us, and we use it. We use the things that were provided to us all, and using our mind, we can make what we choose to make. So the human mind is a very powerful thing. And knowing that all these things, that just look around, look at all the inventions, look at all the fantastic technology that we have now, they were all devised by human beings, okay? Now, think about it. That's your nature also. The people that are coming up with these great ideas, with these great new things that we have now, they're human beings just like you. So you have the same nature. Maybe you never thought about it, but your nature is the same. In other words, you have the capabilities, the potential to create great things for the rest of us. All of us do. Everybody has. Every human has the same potential, because that is our nature. That's what this show is all about. Getting you to see so you can understand. And each week we give you something that's so very basic and so simple to understand. You know, it might take time for you to begin to grasp what we're really doing. All we're giving you here is common sense. But what I believe to be advanced common sense is what we teach on this show. Okay? So now, our topic today is consciousness. I know you've heard this before. I know you've heard the term, and you've probably had it explained many different ways. And I'm sure you have your own concept of what consciousness is. We all do. Okay? If I ask somebody, what do you consider consciousness to be? People will say, well, I'm conscious of what's going on around me right now. Very true. Okay? Consciousness, or you can say consciousness is awareness. Okay? Which people do say that to me. The consciousness is awareness. Okay, but that's kind of vague. It's not very clear as to what really consciousness is. What we're going to talk about today is consciousness and the power that you have within you because of your consciousness. But when you understand how you can use it, I think this is probably the best way, the most powerful way to understand consciousness. We're going to go over that, okay? Man, first I'm going to tell you, man is the creative center of his own world, okay? You are the creative center of your world. Very simple. You have created your world up to this point. You might find that a little difficult to understand and believe, but it is true. You have to give it some thought. You have placed yourself where you are right now. And there are many things. Maybe you've allowed others to do your thinking for you. You've believed other people. Or maybe you chose to go to school, chose not to go to school. Things that you chose to do or chose not to do has you where you are right now. So you are the creative center of your own world, okay? Your nature is always at work, okay? Whether you know it or not, your nature you cannot change. There isn't anything you can do about it. You have your nature, and it is always at work. And I'll give you once again, what is your nature? Very, very simple. You have free will, which means you can think whatever you want. You can think thoughts of greatness, or you can think thoughts of limitations. Okay? That's your nature. You can think whatever you want. Okay? The other part of your nature is that your mind is creative, and it will create what you focus on. Your mind will create what you focus on. Remain focused on limitations and problems and hardships and all that. You will create more of the same. Switch your thinking to greatness, good things, constructive, and your life will begin to head in that direction. That is your nature. So we can say that people that have created great things for humanity, technology or whatever it is that they have created for humanity, it is because that's what they were thinking about. They spent a lot of time thinking about those types of things that they have experienced and then created for the rest of us. I mean, it's common sense, okay? Now, as I said before, there are many ways of looking at consciousness. But look at consciousness in this way, which I believe is the most beneficial way to look at consciousness, okay? Think about it like this. What is it that you know? Okay, let's say your job, for example. Or let's say your education. Okay. Let's say you were educated in history. Or you were educated in science. Okay. Or you're an athlete. Okay. You spend a lot of years working on your skills as an athlete. Okay. Now, think about it. Think about this. Okay. Let's say go back to history again. You educated yourself in history. So, depending on how far you went with it, your knowledge increased to a certain point. Okay. Now, if you look around the people around you, they might not be at your level of knowledge of history, okay? Because they probably have knowledge in something else, okay? Do you understand what I mean? In other words, we all have some type of knowledge about a specific subject. We don't know all things. Nobody knows everything, but we're all have knowledge on a certain subject, for example. And here's the point. The knowledge that you have at what you studied, what you spent a lot of years thinking about, you have that knowledge that the next person doesn't have. Okay? The next person will have knowledge about something that you don't have knowledge. Very simple. Let me put it this way. Let's say, take a mechanic, for example. Do you have all the knowledge that a mechanic has about an automobile? I don't. I was in the construction business for many years. So I have a lot of knowledge about the construction industry that the mechanic doesn't have. But he has the knowledge that he has that I don't have. Now the next person has a musician, for example. He's got knowledge about music that I don't have, and he's got knowledge about music that the mechanic doesn't have. And are you following what I'm trying to say? We each have developed our knowledge about certain things that other people do not have. Okay, it's the first point I'm trying to make, get you to understand that now. Okay, so most of us took that knowledge only to a certain point, and then we stopped. Okay? So when we were gaining that knowledge, what we were doing in reality is increasing our consciousness. Think about consciousness this way. The mechanic has the consciousness where he can see in his mind the workings of the engine and the transmission. He's got that consciousness. He can see it in his mind. Now, like I said about the construction, I can see it in my mind, the construction business. I can see, in other words, I developed that consciousness. The mechanic developed his consciousness. The history teacher developed their consciousness on a certain subject. Okay? So each one of us, and you included, you developed your consciousness in a certain thing. Okay? And how did you develop that consciousness? By putting a lot of time thinking about it. In other words, the mechanic put a lot of years of thinking about the automobile, the engine, and the transmission. I spent a lot of years on the construction business. The musician spent a lot of years thinking about music and his instrument. And each person developed their consciousness to a certain level, to a certain point. Here's the problem. Each and every one, most people develop their consciousness, but then stopped. They stopped at a certain point. They settled. When their consciousness raised to a certain point, then they settled. Now, there are some people, all they did was continue to raise their consciousness. In other words, all they did was spend more time learning and continued much longer increasing their consciousness. And once they increase their consciousness, the rest of us look at them and they say, wow, that person is amazing. Thinking that they're different. They're not any different. They're the same as you. But just think about it. How high did you raise your consciousness and then you stopped? You stopped. You settled. All I'm trying to say is that that person is the same as you. They just continue to think more and more and more about it. They didn't stop. They just kept going and going and going. Now maybe they have fame. They have fortune. They have all these other things that we think is so fantastic, and then we think that they're special people. They're not any special. They're not any more special than you. They have just used their nature, which is the same nature that you have. They just continue to increase their consciousness in what they do. That's all. That's the only thing that separates us. But as far as your nature, you have the same nature. No one stopped you from increasing your consciousness. No one's. You've heard the term, or you have to raise your consciousness. Has anybody ever explained it to you like this? Now do you get it clear as to what you can do, what all you have to do to move on? And what we're talking about is just thinking. I actually hear people say all the time, well, I don't have time to do that. Think about what they're saying. This is what I hear when I hear somebody say, oh, I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? All it is thinking. You don't have time to think. That's all you're doing. That's what you're thinking all the time. You can't actually even stop thinking. You can't stop thinking. So all it is a matter of shifting what you're thinking about to something else, something that's going to give you everything that you want in this life. You want more money. You want more happiness. You want more joy. You want to get more out of life. It is just thinking. I mean, there was a book that was written many years ago. You might know the author's name. He wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. So people bought the book and they're reading all through the book trying to find the secret. What is the secret to this book to get rich? Most people don't even realize it's in the title. The title is the secret. Think and Grow Rich. That's all we're saying here. Whatever you're doing for your career, your job, if you're already into it many years, don't settle. Keep growing. Keep getting better and better and better. Keep raising your consciousness in what you do. There's nothing stopping you. There isn't anyone stopping you. That's what we're saying. That is your consciousness. That's your own personal level of consciousness. You can take whatever you're doing to a greater level. I mean, we went once to a concert to watch a bass player, okay? His name was Victor Wooten. You can look him up online. and watch him play the bass. I mean, I don't know a lot about bass and music. I have a pretty good idea. I was also a musician for many years. But if you go online and watch him play, I mean, it's amazing what he does. It's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else that can play a bass like that. I mean, he's up in a class almost by himself. But think about how he got there. All he did was raise his consciousness. He raised his consciousness. He didn't settle for just being a bass player like everyone else or just to be good. He didn't settle for that. He just kept going and going and going and going. And now, what does he do? He does concerts and gets paid very well. I'm sure he makes a very, very good living. That's all I'm trying to say. It's only thinking. To raise your consciousness at whatever it is you're doing. Don't stop. Because you have no limits. Human beings do not have limits at all. None. You don't have any. It's in your nature. You have the same nature as a Victor Wooten. You have the same nature as an Albert Einstein. You have the same nature as any person that has done anything great in this life. Your nature is the same. It's just that many of you just settle. Do not settle. That's all I'm trying to say. Raise your consciousness at whatever it is you're doing, or find something new and then go. But I suggest you find what you love to do. Find what you love to do and just do it with an incredible passion. You can have whatever you want in life. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're going to take a little short break. And I want to remind you, you're listening to KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM here on the Truth Only Show. And you can find us at truthonlyshow.com. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. That was Victor Wooten himself right there playing Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. And I think that was pretty good proof. All of that music that you were hearing was all played by his bass. He had a loop pedal, so he was creating his own rhythm too. So it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
You're talking about consciousness. And when you were talking about this, you were describing well, first of all, that everybody has their own expertise.
Right. Everybody has it, and at different levels, but everybody has their own expertise at something. Yeah.
Have you ever now? you see a lot of people, and a lot of times people, I think, forget that everybody has something that they know more than you do in something, and like because you meet people, and some people are not, maybe they didn't make a great first impression, and you undervalue them. You're like, oh well, he's got nothing going on or something, but you don't even know what someone could know. You know what I mean?
Right. You can't tell just by looking at people. You don't know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But when you get to know them, you might find out something. So I guess don't underestimate people. But then you started talking about the levels of consciousness, kind of our awareness, and that's something that I've experienced before, and you probably have a similar story. But I know, like, I studied classical music in school, and there's like different ways you can listen to classical music, and how much enjoyment you get out of it, and how much you understand from it. Because now I know, because I didn't always know about classical music, when you would hear it, you might say, like, yeah, it's beautiful, it sounds great, I love it. Then you get into the second level where I actually learned about it, and then you could start to hear it, and you would start to hear things that you never heard before, but they were always there. And you start to pick up on little things. It's like, oh, he's doing these chord changes. He's doing this kind of thing. He's using this type of melody where it's going up and down and up and down. And that's a whole world of insight into the music that I never knew about.
Because you were slowly raising your consciousness.
Yeah, as I learned more, and you learn the techniques that they were doing, and the things that all of them were doing. Like in this period, they did these types of things, and you would start to notice them. And when you started listening at that level, you had a new appreciation for it. Now I can only imagine me, who was just learning about it, and then someone like my professor, who was way into classical music, and that's the only thing he listened to, and that's what, he's been doing it his whole life. And he probably heard so much more than I could ever hear from listening to it. Yeah. And that's all just levels of, that's perfect example for me of levels of consciousness. Right. The bass, it sounds nice, then like, oh yeah, I can kind of hear this, and then probably where he was, where I still don't understand, he was like, wow, they're doing this and they're doing that. So it's like, that's a great example. And I'm sure you've probably seen that in.
I've seen it in my own experience and where I had my consciousness level. I could see, when you raise your consciousness, how it works is very simple, really. When you go beyond other people's consciousness that are doing the same thing as you, you can see their levels.
Yeah, you can see where they're at.
Where they are, but you cannot see somebody's level that's above you. You don't know where they are.
Yeah.
At their level, right?
You don't really know how much they know.
Yeah, you can't
know that they're good.
Yeah, but you don't know how much they know because you're not at their level. But when you go beyond people's level, you can look back and see, because you can see where you were at
Gives you
that
the
time.
new perspective.
Right. So, but the whole point of this is that if the listeners out there, think about this. Whatever it is your expertise is, how far did you take it? How much did you raise your consciousness? Did you stop? Did you settle? Did you settle for years now when you've just going round and round in circle, living at the same level all the time? Can't you just jump back into it again and keep going?
Yeah.
Of course you can. You can take whatever you do beyond anybody that has ever lived before. You can go beyond anybody.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you understand this concept, there's nothing to stop you from greatness. And that's everybody that's listening to my voice. There isn't anything to stop you from greatness but yourself. You hold yourself back. You're limiting yourself. There's no reason for it. Just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
All it is thinking. Because all it was thinking when you were learning what you do. It was just thinking. You were thinking about it. And you put a lot of time thinking about it, but then you stopped. See, the people that move on to greatness don't stop. They keep thinking more and more and more about it. Look deeper. Learn deeper. Their thoughts are much deeper and deeper. That's why they just go beyond everybody else. That's all. But you have it. That's just your nature. That's why we said human nature. What the mind focuses on, it creates. It's very simple. Same nature. We all have the same nature. So focus on your attention on greatness and just keep going forward at what you already do. Just continue to raise your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And it will give you everything that you want in life.
Mm-hmm. I think I've seen that with myself. You can do a lot. If you learn more than most people, you can go really far off of that, and you can exploit it and get every last bit of use out of what you know.
Right.
But then there comes a certain point where you're like, well, at least for me, it's happened where it's like, well, yeah, I could just keep on doing this, but it's like, I want to get better now. I want to get better. And
that's it.
The only way is you have to get out and go and do the research. You have to start learning again.
Just keep
you have
going.
To become a student once again and go and, there's definitely, if you look at yourself, you could probably look at areas where you know that you are lacking in.
Right.
And the only reason why you haven't fixed them is just because you haven't decided to go and do it.
Right.
That's one thing I remember another thing when I was in college is that my professor, he would see people singing, pop songs off the radio, and he was very into classical. This is another one. And he's like, why do you like singing those pop songs? And he's like, don't even answer. I know why you like singing them, because they're easy to sing, because it's fun, because it's easy. He's like, why don't you sing classical music? That's, why? Because it's too hard. You don't want to sing. It's too much work.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you should be singing that stuff. And that's kind of like, I think that's one reason why people stop progressing, because it's hard. I mean, it's hard work to learn stuff.
Well,
I mean,
it takes work.
It's not just like, I want to keep on learning. You have to put in all that work.
Yeah. Well, that's why the saying is, you've heard this before, faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe you can do it, you got the faith you can do it. But if you don't do the work, well, of course,
well, that's
dead.
I think that's probably where most people's problem lies, is that
Yeah.
they don't want to put in the work. But what would you say
But
can get them past that?
well, put in the work. But put in the work. Here, this is what to me is I find difficult to believe that people are on a job they've been there for, because I have known many
Mm-hmm.
that have been on a job doing the same thing for 20, 25 years, but they never advance. They stay the same. Now that is a little hard for me to really grasp why people would do that, because if you're going to do something for 20, 25 years, shouldn't you just get better at it and get more pay and get more everything that comes from improving and getting better at it? If you're going to be there all that time, you might as well get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shouldn't you?
And you would assume that you just would by all the years.
Well, you're only gonna get better if you put a little more effort at getting better at whatever it is that you do. That's all.
I mean, going beyond just what the little thing that you do right now.
Right, going beyond what you're doing right now. Just keep going, keep going. And this is very simple. You have no limitation. You put them on yourself. That's all. We have no limits. Just look at all the things that human beings are doing. They're making a little phone that you can, in a matter of seconds, call to the other side of the world. Think about what those people have in their minds. Okay, they're just like you. They're not any different. There's no difference between them and you. It's just that they continue to use their mind more and more and more and discover all these great things. You can do it also. It's your nature. That is human nature. But we tend to use it against ourselves. Through our own nature, we have created limitation instead of expansion. Isn't that what we're saying here? And isn't everything that we're saying just common sense? We're not saying anything that is not common sense. It's just common sense. That's all it is. But I call this, on this show, we teach super common sense. Advanced common sense. That's all this show is about. That's all it is. It's just advanced common sense. That's what this is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you've talked about so far has been very clear and very simple. Is like the only way to move up is you have to start putting in the work again to get better.
Yeah.
Now, I think people can understand that, but I would say that a lot of them, where do they find the motivation to do that? And how do they get themselves to stick to doing that? Because I think that's a lot of people's problem. One thing that you've said on the show many times is like, you know what you should be doing, but why aren't people doing it, and how do they find it to do it?
Well,
how do you keep motivated in doing what you're doing?
well, because I know one simple, very, very simple law of life, very simple rule, that whoever you have to learn from, you can go beyond them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. So I've known that for years now. So I've known that the teachers that I have learned this, what we teach here on the show, I've learned that years ago. I figured it years ago that as long as I keep learning from them, one day I'm going to go beyond them. That's all. I've known that all along. So knowing that that's a law, that it's going to work that way, I just said, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go beyond the people that I learned from. That's all. So I'll just keep going every day. And that's exactly what's happening. Moving beyond my teachers. I'm moving beyond my teachers.
But so is that your motivation?
Yeah, because I know it's going to continue to go and go and go, because I know there's no limits. So now that I'm going beyond my teachers, what's next? Just keep going. That's it.
So are you saying that maybe a reason why people don't do these things is because they don't really know that it's going to work?
Right.
But they should.
People just need to know that it's 100% for sure. As long as you keep going, you're going to go beyond who's ever teaching you. That's it.
I
We're talking about 100% because that's our nature. It's part of human nature. Whoever teaches you they only learn to a certain point. That's all. So now you're living in a more newer time, so you're going to go beyond them. That's it. Just keep going. That's all. As long as you know that's for sure, why not get on it? Why not get started? It's for sure. We're not telling you anything that's not going to happen to you. It's going to happen to you too.
So you think that doubt is a big killer of people's motivation?
Doubt not, fear not. Very simple. Doubt not, fear not. Don't be afraid of anything, and do not doubt ever, because we're telling you a law, a rule, a principle that is 100% sure part of human nature. It's 100%. Just keep going. That's all. Mm-hmm. Your life is going to get better and better and better. That's all there is to it.
I mean, that makes sense because people, I'm sure they're like, well, yeah, I'm doing my job right now. I'm getting paid decently. I'm satisfied to an extent. You know, if I do start putting in all that work, is it really going to be worth it? I'm sure that's what probably holds people back. You know, wondering, it's like, if I put in all that time, am I actually going to get anything out of it?
Well, let's put it this way. Is it going to hurt you?
To learn more,
to get learn better? More? To get better? Will it ever hurt you?
No.
No. Well, then that's another reason that you should move on. And you know what? But let me correct something. If you're living your life and you're satisfied and it's good, you think your life is great, and you're willing to spend the rest of your life in the condition you are right now, hey, that's great. Maybe you've touched on something, another secret to life that is good. If you're satisfied and life is great for you, continue on.
Do you think anyone really is satisfied?
No. But no, I don't.
Have you ever met anyone that's satisfied?
I really can't say no that I have.
No.
Everybody wants
something
better. Everybody does. I've never known anybody that doesn't. Everybody does.
You've known some.
Whether it's health, whether it's anything, there's never have I ever known anybody that is completely satisfied with life. Mm. But I can tell you.
Have you known people that you've known some people that have had a lot of money.
Yeah,
did you feel like that they were?
Oh no,
not satisfied.
No, I've even had some tell me they had a lot of money, and they said their life was miserable, and they had a lot of money. I've actually had them tell me.
Really?
Yeah. So I know that doesn't change it. That doesn't fix things. Mm-hmm. But one thing I can say, I don't like to talk about myself, but I can tell you right now, and I've said this to very few people that I meet with. My life is great. Mm. I love my life. My life is great. I don't see anything wrong with it, especially because it continues to get better and better and better all the time.
So even though your life is great, you're still not satisfied. You still want more. You still have the motivation to keep going.
Well, more in what sense? More peace, more joy, more happiness, and that's to me, that is the greatest thing in life. In other words, life is an adventure. Life is not a miserable journey. Life is an adventure. Mm-hmm. When you can make life an adventure, life becomes fantastic. It's an adventure now. It's totally different. You know what that's like? That little child, that little toddler, life is an adventure for him. He gets up every day and he's excited to go get his new toy that he's got, and he's playing and running around and jumping up and down. He's so happy because life is an adventure. He's just growing and growing. That's what I'm talking about here. Life is an adventure. And life is beautiful. Life is great. And what? It's just getting better all the time. That's when you know the truth, because it's only the truth that will set you free. Okay.
Let's take another quick break, and then we'll come back and wrap up this topic.
Okay.
You're listening to The Truth Only Show here on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and 102.3 FM. We'll be right back. welcome back to the Truth Only Show. That song is called "You Can't Hold No Groove If You Ain't Got No Pocket." That's by Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
There's a good example of his playing right there. You get some more of his solo bass work. So we're talking about consciousness, and we talked about something right before the break. We're talking about being satisfied, and you don't think that most. Well, you haven't met the person that's satisfied yet, but that has me wondering. You know, we teach human nature on the show, right? That's the
Right.
word. Is that part of human nature? Always wanting to
I-
improve
I think that's what we're here for.
or wanting more.
Well, let me make sure that when you say wanting more
What?
of what?
Yeah.
To me, wanting more is not so much the physical things. Of course, we all want them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I want money just like anybody else does, but I'm not obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what drives my life,
Mm-hmm.
because there are many other things that are much greater than that. We're talking about things that money can't even buy. You can't buy what we're talking about here.
Mm.
There's no money in the world that can buy peace and joy and happiness and love and health and all those things. There's no money in the world that can buy all that. So that's not what we're referring to. I think many people get a big house, a big car. No, that's not it. There's something much greater than all of that. But you can have all those things also. You can have enough to be satisfied, let's put it that way, to live satisfied that everything is
With your
good.
physical, with your
Right.
physical, monetary, and all that.
Right.
Okay.
To have enough for everything.
But
Okay.
I mean, it's part of our nature to not be stagnant.
Of course
Right.
not. Oh, no. I believe we are all here to contribute to humanity, all of us. That's why one man contributes his way by repairing our cars. He's contributing. But he can contribute more. I can't tell him what it is. I don't know. And there's the next man that contributes by understanding of the human body and fix your heart or fix your whatever, your health, that helps you with your health. Another person contributes by supplying food to us. Another person, you know what I mean. We're all here to contribute something. Okay, we're not all here to contribute the same thing, but everybody has a purpose in life. Every single human being has a purpose in life, and it is the greatest thing in the world to discover what that is. And by following this path of what we're giving you, that's what I believe the only way you're going to discover what you are here for. Because whatever it is that you do, there's a greater purpose even in whatever it is that you do, there's a greater purpose for it. And you have to go beyond where you are right now to discover it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're teaching here. Common sense. Advanced common sense. and again, like when we started the show,
Mm-hmm.
I said when I said that we named this the Truth Only Show, right?
Yeah.
And I said if anybody thinks that we said anything that is not true, I'd like to know. What is it that we said that is not true?
Yeah.
I don't think we do that on this show. We always give people nothing but the truth. That's it.
That is what we. What can you remind us one more time? Go over really quick before we end. Just give us a quick overview of what we talked about today and what you want people to take away.
Well, take away from what this concept of consciousness, like I said, all of us have an idea of what consciousness is, and I had my own ideas even before now. But until I continue to discover more and more and more, is that consciousness, the most beneficial way of looking at consciousness is think about everyone has, like you said, an expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody has raised their consciousness by raising their expertise in whatever it is they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has a level of consciousness that they have developed. But the majority of people stop at whatever it is they do. They stop, they quit, they settle for whatever level they have taken their consciousness. So if you understand that that's all that's happened to you, you can continue to raise your consciousness and begin to experience a greater life financially and in all kinds of ways. Continue to raise your consciousness from where you are right now. And there are no limits. Human beings do not have limits. None. Zero. We don't have any limits. We don't even know how much we can do. But the only way you're going to discover how much you can do is by raising your consciousness. Raising to whatever your expertise is now, and just keep going. Keep going. And if you don't like what you do, find something and just keep going on it. And you're going to see it's going to bring you a lot more joy, a lot more happiness, and you'll be much more satisfied in life. And life will become a great journey for you. It will be an actual journey. You'll look forward every day. Every day you will look forward for a brand new day because you're wondering what it is you're going to discover new today. Because you're moving forward. That's what we're talking about, raising the consciousness.
Well, if you enjoyed our show today, we would like to have you go to truthonlyshow.com to find our previous episodes of our show, and hopefully you can contact us through the website as well. That's at truthonlyshow.com, truthonlyshow@gmail.com. Very simple email. You could send us a message, or Facebook. We're on there too if you want to contact us that way. But check out the website, send somebody to it, and help spread the word about the show, truthonlyshow.com. And also, if you would like to check out my band, you can go to thebellcityplayers.com and see one of our shows or listen to our music at thebellcityplayers.com.
And I just want to remind you, you're listening to David Paul Band. That's one of their originals. And I recommend you go to davidpaulmusic.com. Check out the calendar for a fantastic, fantastic night of entertainment. You will not be disappointed. Thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you again next week.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.